Hi, everyone. I'm Ravi Kapur covering the Republican National Convention, and we're joined today by Niraj Antani, who's a state representative in Ohio, part of the House of Representatives, and he's currently running for state Senate in Ohio, the 6th district there. And just yesterday, in fact, as we film this, he got a shout out from the Republican Party. It was part of the pregame festivities of the Republican National Convention. Niraj, always great to have you on the program.
Well, thanks for having me.
So let's talk about the convention first and foremost. As we film this here, we have day 3 of the Republican National Convention. President Trump will have a grand speech at the White House. Take us through the messaging of 2020 versus 2016. Obviously, when you're an incumbent candidate like President Trump and you have the messaging around the last 4 years versus what in 2016 when he was an insurgent candidate. But what have you noticed? What themes are different in 2020 versus 2016?
Well, a virtual convention obviously presents a lot of different, challenges and also perhaps opportunities. But, look, the president now has a record to run on. Vice President Biden does as well. Obviously the differences of the records are quite stark, as is the Republican Party and the Democratic Party's platforms. And so, these conventions provide a platform to highlight, 4 days every 4 years of what our party's message is.
For you personally, obviously going to these conventions are great networking opportunities for a younger politician like yourself. I believe you still might be one of the youngest, if not the youngest, Indian American elected all over the United States. So I know how these state parties are and these national events are. It's a great opportunity for you to connect with the folks that have made it to the very top. For you personally, what are you missing out by not being physically at a grand old party as they would have normally under normal conditions?
Obviously, conventions, either party are a time to come together with, the leaders of your party to advance, the causes and ideals of that party. And so, we are missing out on that. But, I think the right decision to avoid that mass gathering and, keep people safe. And now we are, coming together virtually, but, that also provides opportunities for, people who perhaps couldn't get to Charlotte or Wisconsin for the Democrats to get involved when they otherwise, would not have been able to get involved.
So fill us in on Ohio itself. I didn't get a chance to get out there this year, which is rare. I've been to Ohio quite often the last 5 years, especially in the summertime with the NBA Finals when the Cleveland Cavaliers were playing the Warriors for so many years in a row. But obviously your governor, Mike DeWine, took a really hardline stance about enforcing and making sure the protocols were in place for safety. He took COVID-19 very seriously. Tell us about Ohio and how it differed from other states, particularly states that are run by Republicans, since DeWine is a Republican governor.
Yeah, he did and continues to. And I think, obviously we have to protect lives while now recovering our economy, which I think we are, doing that. The economy was at 18% unemployment, now is, back down to 9.4%, which, obviously is still way too high, but, we are making progress. And at the same time, we have to, protect everyone, but particularly our elderly, our, frontline healthcare workers, such as physicians, and with, protective equipment with masks and N95 masks and face shields, and making sure that we do that. So it is a huge challenge. We in the legislature have taken action on the economic recovery, but also, the health protections. And I think we'll continue to do that until this ends.
Niraj, give us some analysis from your viewpoint, being an Indian American politician, and now you see Kamala Harris getting an opportunity to potentially be the first Indian American vice president. Obviously, she's on the Democratic ticket. And then on night 1 of the Republican National Convention, we had Nikki Haley speak, and a lot of folks are buzzing about Nikki Haley potentially running in the next cycle. And so we have 2 Indian American women really at the highest level of political life, potentially, if we look 4 or 8 years down the line as folks that could be representing us as president. What does that do to you as someone that is, in the trenches every day representing your community?
Well, look, we've got great Indian American elected officials of both parties. Obviously, I'm a Republican, and we've got, quite a few, Democrats, Raja Krishnamurthy and others. And, I think it shows that our community is starting to have a seat at the table when it comes to politics and government, which is incredibly important. And we need, Indian American leaders to fight for our community, to fight, for U.S.-India relations, and to fight to protect our causes and interests.
Let's go down that line, actually, because I'm curious to know your perspective on U.S.-India relations under President Trump. And obviously, the Biden-Harris ticket's going to say, look, Kamala Harris is Indian American, and of course, the U.S.-India relations will be strong moving forward. Do you see things differently as a Republican, as someone that supports the president?
President Trump went to India. President Trump stood with Prime Minister Modi in the United States, has had, great defense cooperation, progress on a trade deal, and frankly, neutrality when it comes to CAA and the abrogation of 370, which is what the government of India was looking for. Unfortunately, Democrats have joined the Pakistan caucus. Democrats have opposed CAA, have opposed the abrogation of 370, and are really kowtowing to Pakistan and that interest. And so, I hope the left would do more to advance U.S.-India relations. Right now, it's really Republicans. If you remember, Paul Ryan, a Republican speaker, had Prime Minister Modi speak in front of a joint session of Congress, and President Obama refused to meet with Prime Minister Modi at that time. And so, I really think that it's frankly our party that is, leading on these issues. And I think for, a while, the Indian American community had sort of ignored this fact, but now we're waking up to see, the fact that Democrats are taking these anti-India positions regarding CAA and the abrogation of 370.
Well, it's an interesting point that you bring up, because I think collectively there's a lot of history that folks are not paying attention to. I mean, the history of the U.S.-India relationship is quite complicated, going back really as far back as Kennedy and to Nixon and onward. And certainly in our lifetimes, there's been a radical change where we are seeing more engagement. I think some of that cooling started off during Clinton and then Bush into Obama and now Trump. So certainly the relationship is as good as it's ever been, unquestionably. And I guess the real key, I believe, looking at what's going on politically, is that Indian Americans are far more engaged politically, and we just have larger numbers now. There are just many more of us here in the United States. And I have been talking to political analysts, and I wanted to get your take on this. A lot of people tell me privately, or at least not for public consumption, that they think the Indian American community is still persuadable, that it's a large enough voting bloc that is potentially in play. It's the ostensible swing vote. Do you look at the Indian American community as a swing vote?
I don't know that the Indian American community is a swing vote. It certainly leans Democratic, but I think that we are starting to make progress as Republicans, and our message is starting to resonate. I think that the left's sort of fierce opposition to 370 and CAA. Fierce opposition to the abrogation of 370 and CAA really showed a lot of Indian Americans the difference between Republicans and Democrats.
With the conclusion of the RNC and the conclusion of the DNC, what is your assessment? Did these conventions move the needle, or was it just really for the diehard supporters of each party?
Yeah, I mean, I think that conventions do have an effect. I think that it's sort of seen as the beginning of the real presidential election and the general election coming into Labor Day. And I think that it's an opportunity for swing voters to be introduced to candidates that perhaps they don't know. But also, you're right, to excite your base. And I think you can kind of tell in both of these different conventions that they've taken both tacks. To, certain speakers are to excite a base, and certain speakers are to target swing voters.
Now, Indian Americans in particular, with Kamala Harris's opportunity to potentially be vice president, they've certainly been energized. We've seen that from the left. What messaging do you think will be able to pull them towards the right and towards President Trump? Because obviously President Trump has been highly controversial during these 4 years, and there's a lot of folks that have appreciated some of his stances, and a lot of folks are irate and want to see him go. And with, again, the vote in flux and still a fairly tight race. What's going to make the difference for Trump to be able to stay on in power?
Well, I really think that this election is twofold. Like any election, is number one, turning out your base, and number two, persuading swing voters. And I think that both sides are going to go for both of those goals. And I think it's obviously a very competitive race still, and we also have a long way to go. We haven't even, we're not even done with the RNC, and we haven't had a debate yet. And the debates, I think, will really draw a stark contrast for people.
And finally, Niraj, tell us about your state Senate race. I understand it's the suburbs of Dayton, Ohio. Tell us more about that district and why you're deciding to enter the fray.
Yeah, I mean, it's been an honor to, I'm still the youngest Indian American elected official in the country, like you said, and it's truly been an honor. And, I'm currently a state representative in the House, but I am running for state senator in the Ohio Senate now, and I would become the first Indian American state senator in Ohio history. And, truly an honor. We were lucky to win a three-way primary with over 64% of the vote, and now are going into a general election that is relatively safe, and we feel good about it. So, it's truly been an honor to represent the Indian American community in the House, and hoping to be able to do the same in the Senate.
Well, it's always great to get your perspective. I love to talk to folks in the trenches, and certainly from the Midwest. We got a lot of folks on the coast that have strong opinions, but it's always great to hear from someone right there fighting the battles in Ohio, which is a state that I've grown to really enjoy coming to. It's a shame we're doing this virtually this year, Niraj, but it's always great to have you on.
Thanks a lot. Much appreciated.